Good afternoon, beloveds, and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. Today, I wanted to drop in and really talk about time and what I'm noticing out there in relationship to women's relationship with time and honoring our soul's rhythms and what our soul is here to do and get off the hamster wheel of constant productivity and work. And I'll be speaking to this much, much more deeply on Monday from 11 to 1, I believe, Mountain Time, sharing some of my wisdom on what I call harmonic living. And it's work I've shared in a variety of ways in small bits throughout the last several years. And it's starting to quintessentialize itself. And I want to share that with you more deeply on Monday. But today I really want to talk about the why and sort of how it all came about, and how even when I began teaching some of this living within the cycles of nature several years ago, I'm not even sure really when, it all came through for me. I've been living this way in certain aspects of my life and in totality, like my whole life, harmonically as much as I can, for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. And it's made some major shifts and impacts in my life. And that's why I'm so dedicated to sharing this information. And I'll answer questions that you may be running through your mind at the end of this. But what's really kind of come through for me, even in the last couple of weeks, through some readings, through sitting on presentations given by very well-meaning business and productivity coaches, and to be able to produce more and get more done. And to be honest, it makes my whole energy system go because of the information that's being shared, because it really comes from a place of you're not doing or doing enough or are enough. So I won't go on my soapbox on that too much because there's a different way and perspective of looking at what you do, where your energy goes, how you do it, when you do it. That's all aligned with what your soul already knows. Your soul has a timeline, your soul has a rhythm, and it's techniques to honor that rhythm and be an awareness of your ebbs and your flows and your energy that brings you into harmony and rhythm. And then you couple that with where nature is in its cycles, and then you have sort of natural allies that assist you in doing things in divine timing and not setting up arbitrary timelines and deadlines for yourself. And some of those come from external, particularly if you work out in the corporate structures. I understand that. So in the webinar, I'm going to address some of that as well, and what you can do to still feel more harmonious when your structures are placed upon you in some cases. But I also noticed sort of the other end of the spectrum, and I'm guilty of doing this, whereas the well-meaning transformational and spiritual teachers are consistently telling you, of course, to take more space, have more rest, go into meditation, quiet time, self-care, all of those things, which are both are necessary. Being out in the world, doing your work, and going into your inner world are both necessary. They absolutely are, to feel like a whole and complete and woven life. But what has come to me most recently, and a card, I'll read it for you. And in my blog post this week, I also shared a writing from John O'Donohue from Anamkara, who was a Celtic spiritualist, and the ancient Celts particularly, really honor, of course, all the rhythms of nature, the 5 senses, all of that. And it really sort of pinged me back to understanding that even when I teach this work, to honor those, your rhythms, your ebbs, your flows, your energy, and work with something that is much more unique to you, because we have a soul blueprint. And in my view, time is, again, it's just so interesting. And I once had a teacher and it woke me the hell up. She said, and it's true, every time I practice this experiment, it is absolutely true. And she said to me, especially when you find yourself rushing and overwhelmed, she said, the more you slow down, the more you can manipulate time. And there is no, it's a paradox, but it is an absolute truism. And so whenever I feel rushed or overwhelmed, and I did it this week, and I'll share that with you, I slow it down and I'm able to manipulate time. What does that mean? That means that if I slow it down and listen to my soul curriculum, I'm then spending time on things that are the most potent, that usually have the most reciprocity, in terms of connection, in terms of abundance, you name it. And so it's this understanding, and I'll speak to it on Monday, of slowing down long enough to understand your patterns, your ebbs, your flows, your energy. High energy for you and high energy for me are two different things. And I'm very high energy. So, but yet I need my rest. I have sort of roller coaster energy, in the sense that I often need naps every day. But when I'm on, I'm kind of on, and I can get quite a bit done. But I also know what my soul is telling me to focus on. And that's the need for the slowdown time. Otherwise, I wouldn't hear any of that information. And I would be doing a whole lot of things that may seem productive, but in the end are not productive. And so, and a lot of us, I've watched these productivity presentations lately, and, the response I see is that almost everyone is overwhelmed, and yet still doesn't feel like they're producing enough. And a lot of should haves, could haves, would haves, all of that. And then there's the opposite end of the spectrum, although I see it less. Although I was talking to a beloved yesterday of, if you allow the spaciousness, then you just don't know what to do with yourself, or suddenly there's no structure and you're not putting anything out into the world. And I find that very common with women who are in transition, whether it's out of sort of a more corporate environment by choice, or retirement, or they were let go, or children are moving on into a grown-up state, and they had structure before, but it was externally enforced structure. And now they're in a place where they can do what they want with their time and struggle with creating their own structures. And that's kind of what I'm gifted at, is helping those that can have some flexibility, create their own structures within their rhythms, their ebbs and flows. And so, we're all coming from all different places. Like I said, we're all very, very unique. But my hope is that on Monday, I'm able to share, first of all, kind of how we got here, in terms of looking at time and being a slave to time, and time equals money and productivity and value, on the one hand, and then where sort of the spiritual bypassing and distortion of manifestation comes in on the other hand, where we just put some thought out to the world, and we wait for our money to roll in. That's just not how it works. Or, we're not listening to our soul curriculum, and we keep pushing things that our soul is not meant to do. And because we don't slow down long enough to listen, or we argue in some cases with what our own soul is telling us, we're in this mode where we're living in a state of productivity and overproductivity in order to manifest some future dream. And we should all have dreams. We should all have aspirations. We should all have inspirations. But what begins to happen is, if we're constantly producing in order to meet some future state, dream, and goal, we are missing out. And I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. We are missing out on what is here right in front of us. And the truth is, this right here, right now, in this present moment, is the dream. You are living the dream in this moment if you choose to honor and acknowledge it and do what your soul is directing you to do. This is it. We all know this in this present moment. Now, by doing that, it actually sets the conditions for bringing those future state dreams into form in a more joyful, aligned, and rhythmic way. But, something that came to me the other day is, and I keep saying it over and over again, your soul knows. You have forgotten that, and that's through life external stories. And I think the divine's cosmic joke that has humans, work towards opening themselves up enough to remember. But what I really, to my core, believe is that the soul knows what you are meant to accomplish. And therefore, what you are meant to accomplish in this life will be accomplished. And that which you are not meant to accomplish will not. And that will often be why the hamster wheel and why the struggle, because we continue to do things that our soul is not meant for us. But we have to slow down long enough and really live in a more rhythmic way than what the last, several thousands of years have put upon us. And so it's time to be in awareness and reclaim some of our remembrance and begin in small bits to do things a little bit differently that honors your soul, your rhythms, your ebbs and flows, the amount of energy you were given on this planet. And that shifts, of course, from day to day and based on what's happening in the real world. Many of us were shaken to our core in 2020. What we thought we knew or how we thought our life was operating completely got turned upside down. And in many ways, several gifts resulted from that. And in many ways, we are still we are still at the threshold of whatever the new normal is for us and what our ebbs and flows might be like right now. And as we age and as life circumstances change, as we do more inner work, those ebbs and flows and energy levels and what we're here to do and who we're here to serve begins to shift. So this is not like, I'm going to teach you how to do this and like then, I think I wrote it down somewhere in my book yesterday. It's like, there's no, like, joy is not a goal. Do you have these action item steps and then the moment you reach joy, you stop doing them? No, it's a lifestyle. It's a choice on how you want to walk through this world, not at some future time, but right now. But that is not overwhelming, and that is in small steps, and that is inspiring, and that works with what your soul curriculum is. So that's really what I'll be diving into more deeply at the end of today. I'll talk about that, why I'm sharing it, how I'm sharing it, what the expectations are in case you have any questions around, am I getting ready to sell you into some big program or something like that? No, the answer is actually no. And I'll tell you why and how the sharing of this webinar on Monday was a calling from my soul that I absolutely could not ignore. But before I do that, I want to read this card that I pulled. I knew I would be talking about this. I knew I would be sharing on this because it's something I share in some way or in small bits every March because we're moving into the spring equinox. And in the webinar, I'll talk about the energies that come with all the seasons. But I'm going to be starting with spring because we are approaching it. And so I pulled a card last week, and normally I do them very random on the days I come here and speak, but this one needed to be spoken today, even though I pulled it last week, and it helped inform what I'm going to talk about Monday. That's a little different than how I've spoken on this subject in the past, and inform today's talk and this week's writing, which I'll also share the blog post down below. But it is the card, Follow Your Own Rhythm, from the Sacred Rebels Oracle deck. Deep within, you are moved by an ancient, powerful force that cannot be tamed. It is the rising pulse of your connection to the life force. You feel it in your bones, in your blood, in your heart, and in your belly. When there is something dying within, you sense it falling away, no longer needed. You sense when it is time to rest and be patiently in transition. You feel the stirring of agitation and restlessness when new life calls you to create, to act, to step forward, and to take a risk. You know that you march to your own beat, that no one else can tell you what your inner rhythms are, and that you must trust in your own timing. And that's really what I'm talking about. So all of us well-meaning spiritual coaches or all the well-meaning business coaches, they can give you tools, techniques, hacks, whatever you want to call it. But it's coming from, and I'm speaking from, it's coming from my lived experience. My hope is to marry that with your lived experience, but I cannot tell you what your own rhythms are. I can tell you ways in which to ask yourself the question and to hear the answer and then do something with that answer. That's my role, and that's been a shift. It really has for me, is I cannot tell you what your timing is. I can't, and no one else can. You cannot be rushed or forced, nor can you be held back when it is time to burst forth. Life celebrates and supports the natural rise and fall of your own inner rhythms, and I know you can feel them if you're slow down long enough to feel them or listen to them and not be going through the day-to-day all the time. We have to. I mean, there's mundane things we have to do, but there's ways to go into doing those things as well in which you are listening. And you're always in dialogue with yourself, with your inner self, your soul, your big self, so that you feel. I mean, you literally feel in your body when that life force, something wants to burst forth, even if you can't always articulate what that is yet, which is kind of how this all, my harmonic living thing here came about. This oracle brings you the special message that you cannot miss what you are destined for, nor will you gain anything by trying to push yourself. Trust in the life cycles within, and you will feel the perfect balance between effort and surrender, discipline and letting go. And yes, there is some discipline involved. When it is time for the rhythm of rest, you will feel a natural slowing within and be drawn into contemplation and environments that are more gentle, spacious, or nourishing, and perhaps more peaceful. When the rhythm of play beats in your heart, you will reach out to others to connect, dance, converse, sing, make music, make love, and share your wildness. You will be drawn to uplifting groups and places where you can experience a positive, energetic exchange. Your needs will be met in harmony with your own rhythms. All that you will miss out on by trusting this is anxiety, which I am no stranger to. And it was the surrender to my rhythms and to my wisdom and to the divine and to this ridiculous hamster wheel timeline we all find ourselves on, that I finally cleared a deep state of anxiety that I was in. So I'm really no stranger to this. What you will gain is peace. If you have also pulled the inner trust card or feel intuitively guided to read that message now, this oracle has the even stronger message for you that you must surrender your attachment to doing the things the way others think they should be done. Whether that be the hours that you sleep or the way you structure your day or your creative work. Yes. So even if somebody tells you that you need to rest more, maybe right now you're very high energy and this is the time to put a lot of energy into a project. And, we can sleep when we're dead, some people say. Of course, sleep is hugely important. I'm kidding. We do need to sleep, but no one can tell you whether you're burned out and overworked. However, it is up to you to pay attention to yourself when you start to cross that threshold and not allow yourself to burn out and take the rest. So knowing when your energy shifts from being high, and yes, it's time to go all in with your creative work or project or something like that. And hey, it's time now to go back into a little bit of ebb. And when we allow that, we get more, once again, more inspiration, more creativity for the project or for whatever it is that we want to bring into form next. You must honor your need for rest and replenishment as well as your need for play. Sometimes an afternoon nap or trip to the beach will do far more for you than slogging away when you are mentally depleted and in need of rest. Sometimes you need to work when the energy is flowing, even though others may say it is too much and you must stop now. You are an empowered individual and you have the intelligence and wisdom to choose for yourself. Experiment with what works best for you and tailor your lifestyle so that it nurtures your best self into being. And so that's really my harmonic living work is really about that. It's about sharing with you some experiments, really, because I believe life is an experiment. Some experiments I've ran over the years and some tools and techniques so that then you come into your own rhythm and create a flow that works for you, and being in awareness of when that flow or structure may need to shift and change. That's really what this is all about. And sometimes honoring that along with the seasons of nature. Sometimes I'm in alignment with where nature is, and sometimes I'm not, based on my own rhythms. I will talk a lot about that on Monday. But those transition times are often great markers, at least to check in and say, do I still going, have the same level of energy, or is it time to go inwards, or is it time to go more outwards? And those are their nature's timeline, transition points to look at what's happening in the outer world in nature, and then look within ourselves to see if we're mirroring that or need to do things a little bit differently. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today. I've just been super fueled by this talk, and what's interesting, and this is me modeling listening to my soul curriculum, because I'm going to be honest, I really wanted to create some big group program around harmonic living, year long, the whole thing. May still happen, may not. I don't know. It's like up there on that big old board of, all the visions and dreams and things I'm actually already doing. That's up there, and it's up there, and it's got a placeholder. And I'm like, no, I don't have the energy to create something like that yet. And so I put it, on the sort of placeholder board. And yet wisdom told me last week, Dina, stop it. You don't have to have anything created. You don't have to have a year-long program. You don't have to have any of that. The time is now to share this wisdom. It's time to let go of any attachment to you that you have to, people working with you, any of that kind of thing. Because these women need to get off the hamster wheel of being told what's too much work, what's not enough work, what's too much spirituality and rest, what's not enough. And there's a way in which to do this, and you've done it, and it's time to share it regardless of whether you are ready. My mind was telling me I wasn't ready. My wisdom said, no, you need to go do this. And here I am. And so I'll be sharing this information at an introductory level for sure, because I don't want to be with you all day. It's probably going to be about an hour and a half to 2 hours, where I really will talk about and give you practices and some worksheets around what your rhythms, ebbs and flows and patterns have been in the past, so that you can use it to look at your present moment and perhaps the future as you are designing your life, as you are setting timelines for things you want to bring into form. Then I'll also share kind of how we got here historically, because I'm totally a time and calendar geek and an ancient history geek. Most of you probably know that. And talk about ideal activities during certain seasons, but also ask you to look within and see what's ideal, or what you feel during spring, and come into awareness. Or, spring's coming up, so I'm using that season as an example, to come into awareness of that, and teach you some seasonal wheel kind of information, and then open it up to questions or individual reflection or practices I can give as much as time allows. And, to answer ahead of time your question, am I doing this webinar to sell you anything? No. Are there ways to work more deeply with me? Yes, I'll be completely transparent. There is a way to customize this and work one-on-one with me, but I have no attachment to an outcome that you do that. My attachment is that women get off the hamster wheel and begin creating lives that they love, and that they are in awareness that the right now, the here and now is the dream, and it's the sacred, and all of that assists you in sharing your gifts and your magnificence in the world, because that is my deepest desire. It really, truly is. Whether you choose to work with me or not is irrelevant. Although I do have some ideas of ways to do some group work going forward, and they are just ideas. So I would actually love feedback if you attend the call. So the link to the call will be down in the bottom. I'm always open for questions. I always open my calendar as much as I can, for short little bits of one-on-one support that I can give. Although I will be going on vacation finally in a couple of weeks, getting to that beach that is much needed for my inner little girl. But Monday will be about an hour and a half. I am asking for registration just so that I can send you the worksheets that we'll be working with beforehand, or if you cannot make it live, I can send you the replays or offers of, doing any Q&A with you after you've watched the replay. So and if you have any questions, like just on what I shared here today, I would love to hear them. I'm always open. My invitation is to take what I say and take what resonates and leave the rest. This is what I share in terms of wisdom is based on my lived experience being with my teachers, years and years of learning and working within wisdom traditions from all over the globe in all different time periods, and just sharing what I have learned and what I've been able to bring into my own life that has changed and transformed it. That doesn't mean I'm certainly not perfect, but it means I try as best as possible to listen to my soul. And this week, my soul said, you need to, and I desire to spend an hour to two in my studio before I even begin to work, just creating. And so I honored that. Well, I honored it, these first 3 days. That was the intention, because I know tomorrow and Friday I may not even be in here. And so I did, and I'm creating background papers. There's no outcome. I'm putting color on paper and listening to what else my soul wants to reveal to me. Like, this is what I call compost. It's like leftover paint, because I hate wasting paint, but it makes beautiful background papers. I'm taking a Dreaming the Child Within class, and this isn't something that was new to me, but creating background papers made out of tea bags and the paper towels that the tea bags drained on. And it's just, there's so much freedom and fun and no attachment to outcome, and awakening creativity without having to draw a face. Although I did do that on one piece too, to just put color down and be completely abstract, or it may turn into something. But right now the attachment is not to it turning into anything, but as a way to dive more deeper into my soul, to get my own information, but to also get additional information what I want to share with you. And that doesn't mean that while I've been doing this week, that there haven't been moments when the inner mean one, is like, you really should be preparing for your classes next week. You really should be doing the outline. You really should be wrapping up something that I'm doing for my studies that is like due. But I was resisting the writing of something I need to hand into one of my teachers. And instead of beating my head against the wall or sitting in front of the computer, not knowing what to say, I was like, okay, I'm going to honor this. This is what my soul is telling me. And I guarantee by the time I come out of this, I will have what I need to write up here, and it just needs to come on paper. And that's exactly what happened. And so this relaxing into what will get done, and what's meant to get done will get done. There's no way I'm going to show up on Monday, I know myself well enough, unprepared. And it's okay. And I took this, and I'm still able to take this time and feed my soul and fuel my soul. Now, the rest of the day, yes, I will be off writing that, but my priorities weren't flip-flopped. In other words, for me, spending time in the creative practice was the priority. What would be normal productivity, income producing activities, my soul was telling me was not the priority. In fact, now that I've done what my soul said, the other stuff comes much, much easier. So that's just my wisdom bit for you today. And I hope to see you on Monday. The links will be below. And as always, I'm here for reflection, questions. I hope to see you either live, so I can give you specific reflection or answer specific questions, or on the replays. Bye.